Okay. All right, now you can hear me, right? Okay. So we start labeling up. Hello, everyone. So I'm Joe Catherine. I am a senior advisor here to the Deputy Commissioner, and everybody know me, right? I operate, oversee the NAB and the CAB with everybody, right? All the staff that are here. So the majority of people, it's about half and half mix of NAB folks and CAB folks in the room. So just for the NAB folks that were in the room, I just want to explain to you where you are. So this is actually officially a CAB committee meeting of the Community Action Board. The committee meeting is the program committee meeting. And so their presentation tonight at their program committee meeting is this training on the basics of Roma, right? So I'm going to just call the new chair. This is the very first time as chair of the committee. So I have to be very kind to her. So Tamika Robinson, she's now the new second vice chair of the CAB, which makes her the chair of this committee.
Good evening, everyone. As Joe said, I am the new second vice chair for CAB, and I'm also the chair for the program committee. With that, I'd like to welcome NAB members, and if CAB members could raise their hands. So I'd like to welcome everyone once again for joining us for the Roma training, which is the results-oriented management and accountability training. And with that being said, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6:19. And I would also like to welcome and introduce the Assistant Commissioner of the Community Development and Programs Operations, Mike Bob.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, CAB members and NAB members. So, ordinarily what would happen at a program committee meeting at some point, either myself or members of my team would be called forward and either laser on a particular programmatic portfolio that DYC is running or give an overview of what's happening programmatically. We had the pleasure of doing a presentation just like you're about, well, I shouldn't say presentation, it's really a training. It's going to be interactive. So I was teasing a couple of folks in the back, you might want to come up so you can get a front row seat for this. But what we had the pleasure of doing last year was doing a presentation on results-oriented management and accountability principles. And that's what you've signed on for today. So I'm going to give a brief word on what that is and where that's coming from, and then I'll introduce my team, and then I'll be happy to sit down and let them take it away. When I tell you about the team, you'll be glad that you made the effort to be here this evening. So, as you all know, DYC is the community action agency for the City of New York. We receive the Federal Community Services Block Grant funds for the City of New York, and we administer funds through requests for proposals with community-based organizations. One of the things that is very important for community action agencies to do is to be able to demonstrate the impact of their work. And so, in many program committee meetings, most often in program committee meetings, I'm reporting back on the relationship between the anticipated results and the actual results of different programs. But this evening is helpful to you in that it really will allow you to better understand the philosophy that underpins how we do the work. So as the team walks you through that, you'll better understand. I have a whole team on the 18th floor, and not just on the 18th floor. There's folks working out of 2 other buildings. We provide the direct oversight. So I know sometimes at CAB meetings and NAB members have had questions about how DYC conducts its oversight. So we go out in the field and we make sure the staff, who I'm sure have the best of intentions, of all the community-based organizations we're funding with CSBG, are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And part of that we do on site and through reviewing their files, right? Did people attend the classes that they're supposed to? Did people get validated proof that supports the outcomes the participants were supposed to obtain were actually achieved? And there's things we're able to do in the office as well because of a very sophisticated database that allows us to see in real time the information that all the CBOs are putting in concerning the participants. A lot of that is the how. You have this administrative system. We have these operational practices. We have staff. It's their job to go do that. We always audit and go check out and see how classes are going. We always talk to participants we go in the field, see what's their experience of the program. There's a lot of different ways that we try to measure performance. one of the things that we've been very conscious about, particularly over the past 3 years, the last time we had our triennial state audit, and we talked to the New York State Department of State, and they said, hey, you passed with flying colors to USC, you're doing an excellent job. So there were no negative findings. But they did give some advice, and one of the things they said is, you're the community action agency for the city of New York, you make that clear, you make that transparent in how you deal with us. We want to make sure, and you want to make sure to the best of your ability, you're being transparent and letting all the CBOs that you work with know that they're part of community action as well. So there are a number of things that we've been doing over the past few years to try to demonstrate that and to try to bring, I'm not going to use the word partner because that has a legal significance, but I'm going to use the word ally. So yes, CBOs come, they apply, they get funds, we have to have oversight of those funds, but tonight is an opportunity for you to better understand how we go beyond just the provision of direct services, although we do oversee to make sure the direct services are being provided. We're the community action agency. When we work through the community-based organizations, they too are part of community action. If you've noticed, the name of my unit has changed. So we used to be Community Development Program Operations, which for a lot of people didn't really mean anything. It just sounds like operation, like do you build something or what? So we changed the Community Action Programs because we wanted to help the CBOs understand that every time we go out in the field, we want to let them know that they are part of community action. This team over there, I want you to raise your hands, right? So I clap it up for them even before you hear anything right now. Because they have been busting their tail feathers to do several things, right? So from left to right, we have Ruben Mina, we have Patrice Lewis, we have Cortez Stallings. And I'm going to say a brief word about each of the three of them and tell you why I think they've been busting their tail feathers. So Ruben Mina is an excellent trainer and a facilitator, really has a passion for helping the community action, helping the community-based organizations explore why are they doing what they're doing. How do they know what they're doing is working? Patrice has been a member of this team that I'm introducing, and she's actually transitioned to a new role. She's our Deputy Director for the Neighborhood Development Area's youth programs, but she loves this subject matter so much that when we had this training, she said, well, I'm still trying to get my certification. Can I be part of the team and do this? Yes, Patrice, you can still be a part of this training. And Cortez Stallings, what happened here? 7 years. Cortez has trained me on a lot of these systems. He's very passionate as a trainer, and you're going to see that he too has a very strong relation with people understanding. Remember I mentioned how earlier, the database, the different systems that we use, how do you report so that it helps DYCD protect this investment? Because when the state audits us, or when the feds audit the state and then it ends up coming back to us, we need to make sure our numbers are there and make sure our numbers are right. Can I get a, maybe not an amen, get a, right, this is what it's about, right? So that is that team. Unfortunately, we don't have Noreen Thompson, who's the director for this unit under me, which is Contract Development and Validation. I changed their name too. They used to be Contract Development and Compliance, but I think validation is a much stronger term of art for what we're trying to do. Yeah, it's compliance, but it's not just you're going to get in trouble with the city. We need to know, is it valid proof, or how are you showing that what we have given you the money to do is actually happening? And I think that people are responding to the change in the name of the unit. People are responding to the change in the practices across the unit. Noreen would be here, but unfortunately she is tending to her own kind of emergent personal things. We wish her well. We send prayers up. We look forward to seeing her back in the office next week. So the last thing I'm going to share, and I'm going to turn it over to the team, is there's an array of different kind of trainings that this team makes available for all the staff who are paid under CSBG and for all the CBOs that we work with who get the CSBG funding. They do trainings in this room and different parts of the city around case management. So if you're working with vulnerable populations, how do you document how those conversations are going? So I have a lot of conversations about strengths-based practices. The database system that I manage, which by the way, DYC is reinventing its whole database. So they are also master trainers who will be training all the CBOs over the next few months, several months, over the new database system. Again, is the how do you report? But what we realized when we got the feedback from 2014, we're the community action agency. And it goes beyond just the delivery of services. It goes into promoting and advocating, which is what the CAB does all the time, advocating on behalf of low-income communities. Roma tonight is about why. And we think it's powerful and important for the community-based organizations that we work with to understand why do we ask them for all this data and all this information that we're doing, because it protects that investment. And I'm not here to talk politics, but I think we can all understand at varying points of time throughout various federal administrations, other points of time, there are people who have said, CSBG, let's just take it away. Let's just cut it in half. Let's just do something else with it. And CSBG has been able to be sustained for over 50 years, since Johnson launched the war on poverty, in part because we have community action agencies like DYCD who are in a position to demonstrate why it works. Because we know how it works, and we're able to communicate why we do the things we do to demonstrate how it works. So without further ado, I don't know who's up first. Cortez is up first. I'll sit, watch, again, participate, ask questions. This here is designed to empower you. We just did a huge community needs assessment. So as you think about this, bring yourself to tonight's presentation. What can you pick up that's going to continue to help you advocate in any of the 42 neighborhood development areas, right? As you recruit additional NAB members, and one day you were again asked, and you rise to the occasion to read funding proposals, how does this information help empower your understanding of what it is we're all collectively trying to accomplish? To me, this is a huge demonstration of best practices. And I think the state recognizes that, why they're delighted that we do this kind of presentation with you. But even if we weren't getting credit for it, we would do it because we're not legally in a partnership, but we are allies, right? Okay, so take it away, Cortez. Thank you again.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you for allowing us the opportunity and the space in your meeting to be able to present and share. As Mike stated, my name is Cortez Stallings, and I'm an outcome specialist with the redubbed, renamed Contract Development and Validation Unit. I guess it goes along with our new mission statement at DYCD to also redubbed, you know. So let me get our PowerPoint up and just continue to start off where we're going to be. And I see a friend in the audience. Hello, Peter. Okay, my man. All right. So nonetheless, it's always good to see friends and friendly faces. And I have another friend that I met today. He's been calling me Frankie Crocker. He says he thinks I look like Frankie Crocker. Does anybody think that I look like Frankie Crocker?
If you let your
Crocker, Anyway, but he says it, so I'll take it, okay? I just hope that I can one day get his money as well. Get that kind of Frankie Crocker money. But nonetheless, tonight's training, presentation, a bridge training overview is normally given in one day. It's an all-day training that we normally give that's also available to you and can be made available to you. But tonight, we're going to give you a version of this training, or the training that's more so fitted for an evening setting like this. All right? It's called ROMA, Results Oriented Management and Accountability System. It's the framework, and it's a lens from which the Community Action Movement, CSBG funded block grant, is established on and woven into the fabrics of the CSBG funded organization that Mike said. It is the matrix, it's the system that informs the funding. And like I said, tonight's overview, we're going to present to you 6 core concepts of ROMA, the Results-Oriented and Management and Accountability System. The first one is mission. That's going to be the first core. And mission is going to be matching why we're here and what we're doing. The second core concept is going to be community needs assessments, which directly speaks to many of you in this room right today. And that's knowledge of community needs versus hearsay. Do we really know what the community needs, or do we think we know what the community needs? Hearsay. Then the third core concept is outcomes and outputs. Clearly knowing our results. Do we really clearly understand what success looks like? Or do we think we know what success looks like, but once we clearly identify it, we're really on mission? And then it's planning. Not just planning, but proper planning. Then the fifth concept will be effective evaluation. And then lastly, we'll conclude with scales. And that's helping us through clear measurements. Remember I mentioned about the new formed DYCD mission statement? I don't know how many of you have been in the room. I'm going to do a quick poll. How many of you have been in the CAB or NAB world for 1 year? Raise your hand. How many of you have been in that community, this community, CAB, NAB, for 5 years? Raise your hand. Okay, a little less. 3 years? A little more. So then you may or may not have seen our mission statement, but if it was on the PowerPoint, it would start all the way over here and go all the way down to the floor. But the redubbed, renewed, reframed DYCD mission statement is connected to even our philosophy with Roma. Roma has so impacted us, and we have blown the trumpet for Roma so much so that it affected all of DYCD to the point that our whole mission statement was reframed, and this is what it is. The City of New York, Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD, invests in a network of community-based organizations and programs to alleviate the effects of poverty and to provide opportunities for New Yorkers and communities to flourish. That's the new redubbed mission statement for this organization that has been so informed and impacted by what you'll be listening to tonight called Roma. But what is Roma? What is Roma? Well, Roma is a complete management and accountability process that focuses on results achieved through an agency's outcomes. One of the things that we're focusing on as we continue to work with organizations and they get this training is to help them see a clear connection or develop a clear connection between an agency's activity and some kind of result, an active process and result. What are we trying to obtain? And then Roma integrates outcomes into an organization's administration, management, delivery of programs, and services. It is the system, it is the process that informs what we do and why we do it. And then we're going to just look at, well, what are the seeds of Roma? Where did Roma come from? It's a fun name, it's a fancy name to some degree, but it's based in the history and the tradition. And I'm putting up 1993, but I want to start a little before that, not to belabor it, but to set the context. If it was a seed, that means it was planted in a soil. Well, what was the soil from which Roma was planted in? Well, the soil from which Roma was planted in started and emerged and was influenced by the Civil Rights Movement. Mike alluded to that earlier in his statement. It was estimated around the time of the Civil Rights Movement that about 30% of Americans was living in poverty. And as Mike alluded to, President Lyndon B. Johnson at the time declared war on poverty in America. As a result of his declaration of war in America, the Economic Opportunity Act came into being in 1964, along with the Civil Rights Act in 1964. Both came in hand. Economic opportunity. Well, what did Economic Opportunity Act of 1964 establish? It established community action agencies and programs that directly are targeted toward helping, assisting individuals who live at poverty or in poverty. Decades later, fast forward, President Ronald Reagan comes on the scene. And President Ronald Reagan makes a bold declaration to the face of CSBG. He says, "We declared war on poverty, and poverty won." And what Ronald Reagan essentially did at that time was sow the seeds and set a tone for defunding programs that help to ameliorate poverty in the lives of people who are poor. That's what he set the stage up for. Let's continue on a little bit longer. Thank goodness, in some of our minds, the Clinton-Gore era comes into being. Ronald Reagan is defeated by President Clinton and Gore and the Democrats. And what is the legislation that comes up? Is what you see on the screen right here. In 1993, legislation under the Clinton and Gore administration presents Government Performance and Results Act, or GPR. Now, what Ronald Reagan was trying to say was, let the poor pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. And then what the Gore and Clinton administration was essentially saying was, but they don't have any boots. Right. So he set in legislation that did the reverse of what the Reagan declaration of us saying that we failed or that poverty won, by setting up legislation to help us become more accountable for what we say we're going to do and what we're going to do. If you look at 1994, what happened under his legislation was something called the MATF, the Monitoring and Assessment Task Force. Now, the Monitoring and Assessment Task Force was formed to produce a national strategy or plan that would help us focus in on measuring our results, the money, and being accountable. And this is what we're looking at now. It set down the foundation for Roma. MAF recommended a framework or system to be known as the results-oriented accountability and, let me say it again, result-oriented accountability and management. Roma was defined as a performance-based initiative designed to preserve the anti-poverty focus and community action and promote greater effectiveness among state and local agencies. And it created what we call the 6 national indicators. But before we get to that, Michael indicated that the CSBG funding and the community action has been around for 50 years. Well, it was time also to revisit the mission and statement of that. So you have something called the Roma Next Generation. I'll just read the slide. In 2016, the Office of Community Services received clearance from the Office of Management and Budget to move ahead with a new annual report, the core of Roma Next Gen or Generation. The goal of Roma Next Gen or Generation is to strengthen the performance management culture in the National Community Action Network. Roma's Next Gen will build on the organizational standards and federal and state accountability measures to help ensure that community action agencies focus on creating dynamic cultures of learning and innovation. So from Roma the MATF through Roma created these 6 national goals. And this is the pillar from which all of our agencies are now working on. The first one says low-income people become more self-sufficient. And that's what we call a family need. The second major goal to help us focus on making sure that we are actively participating and sharing with, making sure that we accomplish results and performance is to have another aim, which is conditions in low-income people live, or the conditions in which low-income people live are improved. That's what we consider a community focus. And then the third aim or goal is low-income people own a stake in their own community. This is real critical to this group right here, because one of the things is, how many times do people speak for the community but don't know anything about what the community feels about? Speaking on behalf of other people. There was something in the Kujichagulia called the right of self-determination, those that are familiar with Kwanzaa. The right to speak for oneself, the right to name oneself on their own behalf and not have someone else name, speak, or say something on your behalf for you. You can speak your own voice, and part of this mandate is to actually get the needs and voices of the people and not plan for the people, but let the people see and determine what they feel is necessary for their own survival and self-sufficiency. And then the goal number 4 is partnering among supporters and providers of services to low-income people are achieved, and that's agencies. And one of the things it's saying is that no one entity in its own right can solve, help, or make an impact on this. You need to work in community. You need to work in networks. And this is a network situation in which we're looking at agencies and those that also work in income, or to say people who happen to have low income. I think the language is about to change because I'm getting tripped up because I don't particularly care for the way it says services to low-income people. I want to put the emphasis on people and low-income next. It's people who happen to be low-income. It's people who happen to be in poverty, not poverty people. It's a different stench when you look at people from those poverty people versus people who happen to be in poverty, because life is a two-sided coin. We might find ourselves on one side of the coin one day, and tomorrow we might be on the other side of the coin. I might be on the front of the podium today. I might be seeking services tomorrow. We definitely don't know. And then the 5th aim, agencies increase their capacity to achieve results. And then the 6th goal, is low-income people or people who happen to have low income, especially vulnerable populations, achieve their potential by strengthening family and other supportive systems. And I want to say that these 6 national goals influence the reporting. It influences the way we view and see our opportunity to serve people in the community, manage in our social service institutions and agencies. This is the lens, this is the matrix from which we will be looking at, and which we do look at here at DYCD. We are a community action agency for downstate. There are 1,100 community action agencies throughout the nation. We're just one. Now, Roma defined, and I think I'm winding down a piece of my portion, or at least just before we move to the next portion. Roma defined. So just as a thought, in 1998, the CSBG became an act, and it stated that organizations who receive CSBG funding must operate through the lens of Roma. It's mandate now. Before it was voluntary, now it's mandated. Those 6 national goals, it's mandated in order to receive the funding. It's the lens from which we get this funding. It's the lens that sets up the culture for community action movement. And it is, Roma defined, a sound management practice that integrates outcomes and results, they mean the same in our mind, into the community action agency's administration, management, operation, and evaluation of programs and services. It's the lens, it's the matrix. So hopefully that was an opportunity to set up that. The Roma planning cycle, this is just an icon to help us to begin to look at how this process works in organizations and in agencies. And it starts off with what? Something that should be very dear to you guys, an assessment of community needs and resource agency data. It's an analysis. What are our needs and what resources do we have to meet those needs? And where's the gap in between? The gap between what our needs are, what resources we have to solve those needs, and where is the gap? And in the middle, the gap is where we seek to design effective services. Planning. Use agency's mission statement and assess data to identify the results and the strategy. Once again, that goes back to that planning, having proper planning based on a desired result, a clearly stated result. What are we trying to do and why are we here? Then the implementation process, services and strategies to produce the results. That's the gap I talked about between what we have and what we need. And then achievement of results. Observe and report the progress or lack of progress. If we're not making progress, then we need to analyze, well, what are we not doing? What's blocking? What's impeding? What's getting in the way? What do we need to tweak? What do we need to revisit? Maybe we need to go back to evaluating analysis of benchmarks that we established to say, well, we wanted to get to this goal or this result, but is it not working? It ends right where we started, right back with assessment, because as we're doing this particular cycle, we're continually tweaking our product of services and goods that we need to deliver to our communities, especially vulnerable communities. And we're getting more vulnerable as we go along. So this process becomes a system which organizations and agencies can use in order to tweak our product, even if our product is human services. And then, okay, so that just kind of ends that. We're going to start formally now the mission concept. One of the key cores is the mission concept. Now that we have an understanding of the origin of Roma and community action, let's look at one of the key components in the framework. A man named Peter Drucker, expert who shaped the management field for over the last 40 years, has influenced this Roma model. And one of the things that he says is that each social sector institution exists to make a distinct difference in the lives of people in society. Making this difference is the mission of the organization's purpose, the very reason for being. A mission cannot be impersonal to be effective. It has to have deep meaning. Be something you believe in. Mission sets the core for us as we work with CBOs in our organization. We even ask now with the new RFPs that are put out, please clearly state what your organization's mission is, because mission is the way that you define yourself or your organization. And What is mission? The agency's mission is a foundational statement upon which the agency builds. It says why the agency is in business and what results the agency is trying to achieve. The effective mission statement is short and sharply focused. It should be able, he says in his mind, it should be able to fit on a t-shirt or the back of a business card. It means that we have to do some thinking about why we exist and what we plan to do. And if we can tailor it down and streamline it to the most simple, basic forms, then we'll probably have something to do. If it's too big and Amoeba light, we probably won't reach it. But if we can tailor it down to the most simple, basic elements, it's probably more effective. Now this is where you can get involved. I've done a lot of talking, all right? So here is a quick survey question. And there's no right or wrong answers, this is what we often say, because we know that the concept, you don't know it. But according to the Roma model, it says, the mission survey question, what are the 4 key components of a mission statement? So, how many of you think that understanding or having in your mission statement population is important? Just raise your hand. Okay, very good. How many people think that the mission statement should include the funding sources? Raise your hand. Said that. Okay, let's see. Relationships. Right? Community needs? Come on. Did I say community needs? Everybody's hand should come up in this room. Okay? Let me say it again. Community needs? Alright? Measurement tools? Sort of, maybe. Outcomes? Outcomes. Services? Assumptions. Good, nobody put their hand up. Let's see what the model reflects. According to Drucker and according to the model, a mission should definitely include the population, the relationships or partners. It should have what outcome you hope to achieve and what are the services that you hope that will get you to your outcome. That's the matrix for Roma. Not to say the others were wrong and anybody was wrong, but in this model, they're looking at 4 key components to a good mission statement. And we work with agencies and also individuals that are working in smaller, more microscopic units to look at framing the mission. Even Mike Bobbitt did that with us. We looked at our own agency and our own smaller units and came up with a mission statement just for us. It may work also for you. Some of us have even developed mission statements for our own life, independently. What's your reason for being here? Why are you here? What did you here? What did you do?
This seems really odd to me that relationships would trump community in a mission statement.
Well, we'll get into that as we go along, but it's a very good question. We know that you need to understand the community needs. That's no doubt. But we're looking at a mission statement, really looking at establishing why our organization exists, or our agency exists, and what are we trying to accomplish. So we're looking at a mission statement, more so than whether or not that's right or wrong. We're looking at forming a mission statement for your organization or identity. But maybe as we go along, some of that will be answered. All right, but it's a good question, and thanks for raising it. That's okay. We'll see what happens toward the end. All right? But let me tell you something. In this room, and for our model, the voice of the community is an essential core element. We did mention it of the 6 cores that we'll be talking about. Right now, we're focusing on the mission or the mission statement. Question?
Could we amend or change our mission statement once we find out that the needs have been met?
Wow. Did y'all hear that?
Reading ahead.
Did y'all hear that? Would you say it again?
So could we amend or change our mission statement when we find out that the needs of the mission have been met?
Do we change or amend our agency's mission statement when we believe that the mission has been achieved? And I'm going to put a pinhole in that because we're definitely going to get to that as we move along, even in what we're going to say in a few moments. For Drucker's purposes, he's saying that whenever you come up with a mission statement, it should have these 4 components, and he color-coded it, or we color-coded it. You need to know who the agency is serving. If you don't clearly identify who you're serving, then you're just aiming too broadly at a target that's just too big. Who are we serving? Then he says, once you have clearly understood the mission of who you're serving, then you have to begin to think about your outcomes. Are they clearly stated? Can you tell what will change? In other words, the outcome or the result is some kind of change that we're hoping to see in a condition, a person's information, or in general their whole life. And in the community action model, the first goal is self-sufficiency. And that's what we're working towards in the lives of people who happen to live in poverty or communities that happen to be affected by poverty. Then he says relationships/partners. Maybe it should be allies based on what Mike said, but it's partners in the language here. Is there any identification with other organizations that show connections that help the agency further its mission? Once you know what your population that you're trying to serve, and once you've clearly identified what you hope to see change, then you realize that no one organization can do it alone. You're going to have to find allies. You're going to have to find partners. Who's going to help you further it? Whatever gaps that exist in your organization and institution, what other networking linkages that you can help to support the overall, and then you all help each other. Some people call it the village concept. Some people call it networking. It's an opportunity for you to see where you, as one organization or an organization, realizes it's not self-sufficient all in its own. It's going to need other resources to help. And that's one of the things that we say. We even say that when we look at proposals now too. Name your linkages. What are your linkages? What other organizations and agencies are you working with that help you facilitate serving your people? We know that no one organization can do it alone. So how are you reaching across the aisles? How are you reaching across the street? How are you reaching across agencies to help each other help the people? And then lastly, it's saying here, services. What services are being provided? Once you know what your outcome is, what services are going to get you there? What services need to be rendered or provided in order to help people get there? Here are some samples. Of course, it's color-coded. It says here, you may have it in your PowerPoint. I'll go back just to look at the color code. Population is blue. The outcome component is purple, green is the partnerships and relationships and the services. A good mission statement should include them all. One sample. Anybody want to read that for me from the field so I don't have to work so hard?
To advocate for, support, and train CSBG-funded agencies, utilizing our collective strength to eradicate poverty.
As you look at the matrix, you can see the outcome. You can see the population. I'm going to go back just so you can see the services are in orange, and green represents the relationship, our collective strength. The outcome is to eradicate poverty. The service is to advocate for and support and train CSBG agencies. So this was some of the I wonder if indeed this might not be one of ours.
It is Cortez.
That's ours.
Yes.
That's ours. Hold on, wait a minute.
He got excited rereading it.
That's our mission.
Yes.
We did our own mission statement.
Yes.
And this represents what our unit came up with on what our unique mission is. I know it looked kind of familiar. I got excited. Okay, somebody slipped it. I'm sorry, y'all forgive me. I get excited over these things. Little things excite me sometimes, okay? This is one of them. This is ours. Okay, so let's see what the next one is. Here's another opportunity. See if you could clearly identify what? The goal, or I should say the services, the people, the partnerships, etc. Here's one other mission statement. To eliminate the cause of poverty in partnerships with other poverty, in partnership with other human service providers. Very good. By strengthening what? Low-income individuals, families, and communities through what? Self-initiative in whatever county it is. So this is another opportunity to see a short, concise model or opportunity of the missions hitting the 4 components. And now, this is DYCD's mission. We had to reframe it all over again. So we wanted to make sure that we hit services, that we hit partnerships, that we hit those things as well. This mission statement says this: the New York City Department of Youth and Community Development, DYCD, invests in green. This is the service. A network, partnering rather. Services to partner with us. Network of community-based organizations and programs to alleviate the effects of poverty and to provide opportunities for New Yorkers and communities to flourish. So this is the matrix that we present to the organizations that we are also training. Now to this gentleman's point here, this is the question. One of the things that he said, should we change our mission? Let me ask this group this. Do you believe that there is any legitimacy in changing an organization's mission? If so, let me know. I'm going to do a poll right here. Who believes that there are times in which an agency ought to change its mission statement? There are lots of people say that. Anybody want to take a risk and share why you believe that it might warrant a mission change in an organization if we stated that it is your reason for purpose in establishing why we're doing what we're doing, what we do and why we do it. It's our reason for existence as an agency. We are clearly focused on the mission. Anybody want to take a chance at what might validate a mission change?
The population need might change.
Population need might change. You want to give me an example of something like that? Because
Yeah.
you're on target.
Well, the community might not need what it needed 20 years ago versus now.
That's right. Case in point. How many remember, gosh, what was the disease that was recent? Was it the March of Dimes? Help me out. Polio. How many people remember the disease polio? See, I remember watching on television iron lungs and kids and people in huge machines because of a debilitating disease that affected individuals and shut down polio. But nobody knows or hears about polio anymore. You know why? Because the polio vaccine. The vaccine has pretty much rendered polio off the face of the planet. So nobody talks about polio, but guess what the March of Dimes mission was? To eradicate polio. So does the March of Dimes still exist? Yes. But what does the March of Dimes mission is now? It's not to deal with ameliorating or taking polio off the planet any longer. It's to now work to help individuals who have other kind of health needs and conditions and community services. So to answer your question, the answer is yes. Now, let me preface that with another thing. Sometimes we have something that's called mission drift. Now, think of a piece of bark on an ocean that's just being carried by a wave, drifting away, aimlessly. It's not a boat, because a boat has a rudder. You can steer it, you can desert it. If you have a sail, you can aim the sail toward the wind and you can guide that boat. That's a different kind of thing. I'm talking about a piece of wood floating, going aimlessly, drifting away. An agency can also drift away from its mission. Can that be true or false? Can an agency drift away from its mission? Who says true? Who says false? True. An agency can drift away from its mission. Under what conditions do you believe that an agency or an organization can drift away from its mission? Remember, the mission is your core. It's your raison d'etre, your reason for existing, and to do what activities. Why am I doing what I'm doing? If what I am actively doing is not connected to me getting to the mission or the outcome, I know I shouldn't be doing it. There is a direct correlation between activities and achieving the mission. So, what condition might help, or shouldn't help, but cause an agency to drift off of its mission? Any ideas? A crisis. You want to elaborate?
I'm thinking about the foreclosure crisis.
Foreclosure crisis.
Some people say it's over. I don't think it is, but it's right now the numbers aren't as intense as they were, 7 years ago. And let's say an agency's mission was to help people buy homes, and that's all that it did. And then it found that people that they were assisting were caught up in this foreclosure crisis. So they start providing additional services to help them address that, legal services and other things. That's not the specific mission, right? I mean, it's important, and they're starting to address a new need. but it wasn't what their focus was.
Anybody agree or see that might be a little different than drifting away off of mission? Let me tell you what my take is. Did anybody give me opportunity? Okay. Ooh. Okay, let me put a pin on that. Help me remember it, somebody, if I forget. Because you know I talk and then gotta go on drift myself, okay? Reel me in. Your name?
Edwina?
Edwina. Gentlemen,
Yes.
your name?
Canva.
Camwa?
Yeah.
Camwa. Edwina. I think your situation goes more akin to what this gentleman was talking about when he said that sometimes the mission becomes accomplished. In the analogy that you gave, if the agency, based on its needs assessment, figures that the organization is no longer serving the needs of the community because that's no longer an issue, and then they go in another direction, like the March of Dimes, that's not so bad. Now, let's connect to what you just brought up. And tell me your name. Rhonda makes mention of lack of resources. And that's probably more the danger zone of an organization drifting from its memory. We used to have a picture in one of the more extended trainings that showed a group of people sitting around a table, maybe 4 or 5. And someone says, "Eureka! We got the funding!" And then the other person says, "Now we need to plan on what to do with the money." See the connection? We need resources, so we start chasing, as Drucker calls it, chasing after the money and not the mission. We forget the mission, but we start chasing after the money for resources. Now, if the resources that we have obtained is not part of our mission, then we're mission drifting. Because if you were initially, let's just say this, let me go back to your example, Edwina. If the situation was an organization identifies the needs of its community to help purchase homes, right? And they are doing that, and there is no crisis. They're helping people get homes. But this huge pot of federal money to help people do foreclosure comes into being. But yet we realize that our bottom line is getting really low. We need cash flow. We need money. We need to bring money into this institution. So the organization now maybe decides to drift over to getting that dollar to find or fund another hot budget item or financing item, but it's not connected to what they really said that they want to exist for. That's drifting away. Not all money is good money. Because now, if you're trying to figure out what to do with that money because it's not connected to your activities, because remember, activities, services are connected to your outcome. So you're setting up, are set up to help people buy homes, not prevent foreclosure. So preventing foreclosure means legal assistance. It means a whole caveat of other services that we as an agency may not really be skilled, expert at providing, but somehow we got this money and now we have to figure it out. That is a clear example of an agency starting to drift. The mission should be reviewed on a regular basis. The agency's mission statement should not be changed without a cause. So it can be changed, but it has to be a legitimate cause, like the March of Dimes. Mission change, specific and deliberate. When? We talked about it. Mission drift, internal, external influences. The mission is the basis on which every decision in the agency should be made. If your guiding star is the mission, everything should be moving in the direction to the star. Once we start going to the left of the star or the right of the star, we're drifting away from the mission. That's why establishing a clear mission is the foundational principle and core group in Roma, because when you're on mission, then it helps you with all the decisions that you make. It's no longer trying to figure out what we're going to do, why we're going to do, how we're going to do. No, the mission guides us. It's the star. It guides us on the ocean. That's why mission is so important as a core organizational principle to Rome. And with that, I'm going to pass the baton on to my colleague, who will probably speak on the second core value of the 6 values, community needs assessment. Thank you for dealing with me and my ramblings.
Good evening, everyone. So, my name is Patrice Lewis, and there was a young lady, I believe it was you had the question about the community assessment, and that being part of the mission, right? So, Roma has an answer to your question, and it states, and I quote, "The mission statement, as we have seen, helps to define why an agency is in business. By identifying your mission statement, the agency has acknowledged a perceived need in the community that it wants to work to eliminate. So in your mission statement, it will touch on what your needs are, what the community need is. Okay, so Roma does address that issue. And I'm going to be preaching to the choir here because I'm talking to CAB and NAB members. We're going to talk about the next phase of Roma, which deals with community assessment. And Roma states that before moving to establish the activities of the agency, you must be sure that you understand the needs and resources in the community through a comprehensive assessment. And basically, that's the work that you guys do. You work with Joe and his team, and you guys discuss what the needs of the communities are and how you go about finding out what those community needs are, correct? Correct? Okay, so community assessment is a systematic process for creating a profile of the needs and resources of a given community or target population. And it states here that it is a way to identify the difference between what exists and what should be. So what is it that I want and need, and what do I have, right? And in your work, you guys go around and you ask people, you know, what is it that you need, what is it that you have so that you can flourish as an individual, as a family, as a community, correct? Right? And then you come up with the different needs. This is what in my community we need A, B, and C. How did you do that? How do you know that's what your community needs? Because we ask people. And then you talk about the various ways you went about to gather this information. That's a community needs assessment. And it forms a link between the agency's mission and the outcomes that you want to achieve. The community needs assessment is going to be the bridge between what your mission is, why you're doing the work that you're doing, and what is it that you're trying to achieve. Correct? So with that said, I'm going to go to how do you guys collect information? How do you guys collect the data that forms your community needs assessment? Survey, right? What else? Talking to people, word of mouth. What else? Public hearing, right? Observation, interviews. You also identify key resources, correct? And you also identify resources that's being threatened. What are things that you might lose and how you can hold on to them, correct? So with that said, once you establish your needs assessment, and also, let me just say this to you, agencies gather information so that decisions can be made regarding prioritizing those needs to address outcomes that can be achieved. The assessment of the community needs forms the link between the agency's mission, again, as I said, and the outcomes it wishes to achieve. So what kind of needs do our communities face? As Mike said, I work with in the NDA initiative, and I work in collaboration with agencies who support educational high school youth and opportunity youth, which is a workforce initiative for young people 16 to 24. So for me, that's a need in my community, education and work, right? What else are some needs in your communities? Healthcare. Housing.
And we lower the microphone.
You can't hear me? Oh, really? I'm surprised. No, because they say I got a big mouth. So.
Be careful what you ask for.
Okay. Don't make me laugh. I'm trying to be serious. So, yes, sir.
Employment.
Education.
Advocacy. Legal advocacy. Legal advocacy.
Legal advocacy, absolutely, absolutely. So the CSBG work plan framework establishes a list of services and categories that may be addressed by the funds that Cortez talked about earlier, Community Service Block Grant. And they are being broken down into categories, which is employment, we talked about that, education, income management, housing is big for me, housing, emergency services, nutrition, because I like to eat, everyone knows that, linkages, partnerships, right? Self-sufficiency, health, services for youth, and services for seniors. Those are the main domains and categories under the CSBG funding source. And these have been identified as important areas related to the well-being of a community, the individuals and family members that live in the community, and the agencies that serve the community. So once we come up with our needs, right, through the various works that you guys do, right, now we have to break it down further. We have to decide what level this need is. Is it a family need? And we're going back to the 6 national goals that Cortez discussed earlier. Is it a family need? Is it an agency need? Or is it a community need? Right? We have to be clear about this after we do the assessment. And, I'm gonna try. I think I did this right. Okay. Am I right? Okay. I'm not a technical person.
You want me to do
I
the
just
slide
got a
for you?
microwave. Yes, Cortez, thank you so much. I just got a microwave. Yes, true story. All right, so once you come up with your needs, right now you're going to take it a step further and you're going to identify whether that need is a family need, agency need, or community need. And when we say family, we mean is it important to the individual and his or her family? When we say community, is this need impacting the entire community? And agency need means, does the agency need this service or this funding to deliver a particular service to the community? Right? That's the level. Individual, family, or community. So let's take a stab at it, right? Let's take a stab at it really quick. Let's say if education is a need. Well, education is a need in our communities, correct? Now we're going to take it a step further and say, is it a family need? Is it an agency need or a community need? And how we do that is by asking a specific question. Individuals do not have high school diplomas. Is that family? Does it pertain to an individual, a community, or an agency? How does it impact? Individuals do not have a high school diploma. We say that's a family need, correct? Our community does not have youth who are prepared to take productive roles as adults. Community need. See, it's all about the wording. It's all about the wording, helps you identify if it's a family, community, or agency need. Our agency has a need for additional resources to establish or expand GED preparation programs for adults who have not graduated from high school. Agency. Right, exactly. Don't worry about your big mouth. It's okay. Our agency. So the agency is saying if we had these resources, we can be able to do this particular work. It's an agency need. And that's what Roma teaches us in community assessment, how to do a community assessment and how to really break it down in one of these 3 levels. And education can be all 3 of these needs, right? Mm-hmm. Education can be a family, community, or agency need, but when you're going for, based on your mission, you're gonna write this out or think this out in this way. Are we clear about that? Are we clear? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Yes, I just want to know if the mission statement is draft from the need assessment or after the need assessment.
The mission statement is done first, and then the community assessment comes next. That's the second layer.
So if the mission statement comes first, how we know about the services that we provide to the population?
As I said, in your mission statement, there's a perceived need. There's a perceived need. You're writing your mission statement because there's a problem there that you want to solve. So by identifying the issue in the mission statement, you are addressing the need. You're touching on the need. But this part of Roma community assessment allows you to go deeper. Are we clear about that? Okay.
Can I say something
Yes,
real
sir.
quick? I feel like you keep reading ahead and I love it, right?
Yes, yes.
You're asking about the services, right? That's your question, right? So if you check the end of what Cortez was saying about what this is building, this foundational work that needs to be done first. And you think about that mission drift conversation, people are very quick to go to the services. You'll get to the services, but you got to get the mission first.
Right.
And you got to build the need first. Because you don't have any direction to know whether you're going to deliver on the services unless you have the mission first. And you know what I'm saying? So, all right.
Right. So, I'm going to jump ahead because of the purposes of time. I'm going to jump ahead to, and in your PowerPoint, you see different examples of a needs assessment question of how to form your question when you're doing your needs assessment. But for the purposes of time, I'm going to skip. Cortez, go past here. Go to the next screen, right? And this is how you come up with your needs assessment. Think about a need in your community, right? And you're going to determine the level of that need, which is family, agency, or community, and we're going to brainstorm it. That's normally what we would do in this activity, in this module of Roma, if we have more time. But when you get back in your meeting with your groups, you can do this in full and depth where you have more time when you guys meet as a group in your CAB, NAB meetings. Correct? Okay. So to the next slide. Oh, and I left my drug book. Cortez, can you give me my drug book? In addition to, when I'm passing this book around, Cortez keeps referring to this book, and I want my book back. This is a very good book. I encourage you guys to get it.
The 5 most important
The
questions.
5 most important questions you will
Excellent
ever
book.
ask about your organization. So these are questions that help you form, your mission, your needs. I'm telling you, I really highly recommend. I got it for free, but you might have to pay for it. Don't worry about that. So one of our key components is when we're talking about the needs, right? We need to know who are we talking about, who are we serving, who are our customers, and that's one of the questions that Drucker in that book asks. Drucker identifies 2 types of customers: the primary customer, which is the community participant and or CBO, and the supporting customer, which is the funder, which might be DYCD if we were in a room of community-based organizations that we fund to provide these services, right? And both of these customers must be addressed, right? What does the customer value? What do our members of our community think is important to them?
Yeah.
Education, healthcare, housing, employment. These are the things that members of our community think are important, and that's why we're doing the work that we do, because we want to help them get the things that they think are important to them, right? So you must know who your customer is, who members in your community is, and what do those members of your community value in order to be able to give them the services that they need to achieve the particular outcome. And also what's important is the data and the resources that we use to do our community needs assessment, right? There's qualitative data, right? Qualitative data is primarily used when we want to find out the depth and breadth of an issue. It provides you with opinions, observations, and other rich, subtle information that you can't get any other way. Qualitative data can be categorized as data that is presented in words. A simple hint is the I in qualitative data. Who would you ask? I would go to and ask members of my community, right? Of what they need, what are the needs, right? Another form of data is quantitative data. Quantitative data deals with the demographics, the numbers, right? It would be, as to quote, the other kind of data that you need to gather is quantitative data that will be used to add a more standardized dimension to the perceptions that you have identified. Qualitative data provides information in specific categories, again, such as the client characteristics, the demographics. The agency service data can also be useful to identify the number of people that you're trying to serve. How many people are impacted by this need or this lack of resource in your community? That's where the quantitative data comes from. So these are important, and then we're going to analyze that data and say how we can use this data to achieve a specific outcome. Are we clear? So, and if you want, you can browse through my book at the end of the presentation, but this is a great book. It talks about Roma, and this book goes into it in more detail. This is just an overview, all right? So next is my colleague, Mr. Ruben Mina. Is my book going around? Okay. Okay. We're in nobody's pocketbook.
Just the title.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Ruben Mina, also an outcome specialist. So, in the interest of time, some of these slides I'm going to skip, but some of them you'll see they're repetitive. So, for the core Roma concept of outcomes and outputs, we're talking about outcomes and why do we want to identify outcomes? So in the business world, outcomes are usually measured by profit, right? In the business world, it's about profit or customers or something of that nature. In the nonprofit world, by definition, it can't be about profit, right? So we have to have something else when we talk about outcomes, when we talk about how do we want to look at success of a nonprofit organization. So we look at, measuring the results of the services and the results of the programs and the impact on the people that they're serving. So that's the measuring stick that we use to identify outcomes. So identifying, documenting, and using results are part of the overall management of an effective organization. This process is consistent with good quality management. So here's a survey question. This slide I'm going to just jump to the next slide that has the answers, again, in the interest of time. So the survey question is a characteristic of outcomes is that they are smart. S stands for specific, R stands for relevant or realistic, and T stands for time specific or timely. What does the M stand for? Here you see measurable as opposed to modifiable and motivated. So again, we want to be able to come up with outcomes that are measurable. So something that can be measured through some type of tool when you're looking at evaluating the services. Another question down here, characteristic of outcomes is that they are smart again. S, specific, R, relevant, T, time specific. What does the A stand for? Here you see achievable. So that's the whole point of having an outcome, that you want something that's achievable, right? So if you're having a service and you're saying, like to Patrice's example about education, you know, an achievable outcome may not necessarily be that you want 100% of the students to graduate on time. We know the way the education rates are that that's not necessarily achievable, and especially in a short time frame. So you want to make sure that based on the need and based on what you're able to provide in terms of your resources, that you're able to come up with achievable outcomes and measurable outcomes, in addition to specific outcomes, relevant outcomes, and outcomes that you put some type of time frame to. Because again, that's the other point, right? You want to tell people, you want to tell the community, you want to tell people who are invested in your organization, how long do you intend to work on this issue? How long do you want to, how long do you think it is going to take you to help address the issue and help achieve your mission? And that's why when we talk about mission, sometimes missions need to change because the outcome was achieved. And if the outcome is achieved, the mission is no longer relevant or no longer applies in the same way. So that can be another reason why you may want to change a mission. Roma uses the words results and outcomes interchangeably, so that's just for your information. Sometimes from our agency, you'll hear those two terms in the context of Roma. They apply in the same way, they mean the same thing. It is about a change, accomplishing something, a benefit. So when you think about an outcome, so you talk about your organization. You say the great things that you do, the great staff that you have, and then someone is sitting in front of you and saying, okay, so what? How does that help me that you have these great staff members with all of this experience? How does it help me that you have this beautiful facility that you just invested a lot of money in? The outcome is what they want to know. And that's what we want to know as well, right? So all of this stuff that you're telling us about your organization, what do you ultimately want the people who you're serving to walk away with? How do you want to change their life? So one way to think about that, I was just thinking about this myself. This presentation is not the outcome, right? Your attendance here is not the outcome. That's something that we call an output, which I'll get to in a second. The outcome that we're hoping from this presentation is one, that you walk away with increased knowledge about Roma, and also that you walk away being able to see the connection between Roma and between your relationship to DYCD. So that's one outcome, another way to think of outcome. So I'm going to skip this part here and just jump to the answer. So outcomes are always measurable and have clear indicators that describe a specific condition that identifies the outcome. That is true. So again, I'll repeat that again, it's written there on the slide, but outcomes are always measurable and have clear indicators that describe a specific condition that identifies the outcome. And how can outcomes be used to measure change? Over time, in status, and in direction. So over time, you might say, over the next year, X amount of people will increase their knowledge on Roma. In status, you might say over the next year, X amount of people will become certified in Roma, or something like that, right? And in direction, then you might say over the next year, someone help me out a little bit.
Over the next year, 50% of the people, if they did I don't know, after tonight, everybody who did the pre-assessment, their scores will go up by 20%.
Yeah.
Right. So who did the pre-assessment? Who did the pre-assessment?
Thank you.
Right. So that's a perfect example. Thank you, Mike. So again, sometimes it's helpful to think of examples and illustrations from your everyday life, right? Just because outcomes apply in all sorts of ways. I remember when we were going through this training, we talked about different ways that we measure things. And one of the things is the weather. Right? You wake up in the morning, you look at the weather, you make an assessment on what you're going to wear for that day based on the weather, based on the data that you're getting. So it's the same way when you're thinking about outcomes. You can look at it any way in different applications of your life. So this is talking about the output. Output are services, program activities, doing something, measured by units of service, number of people served, hours of participation as examples. So again, this meeting, this training, this forum tonight is an output, right? The outcome is what? I just said it a minute ago, 2 minutes ago. Say it again. Right, that can be an outcome, right, that you're able to apply this information. You also have increased knowledge about Roma. Who here knew about Roma before tonight? Raise your hand. I know my people down there knew about Roma, right? So after tonight, hopefully, when you hear the word Roma, you won't just think about tomatoes. You think about DYCD, you think about this wonderful training. But again, that's the outcome. If you walk away, change. So we're trying to change your level of knowledge tonight through this training. So hopefully that happens. If it happens, then we've achieved some level of an outcome. Right? The output is simply you coming, you attending. That's significant. It has value. But in terms of what we're thinking about Roma, and just in thinking about how you want to structure programs and things of that nature, outcomes are very significant. Because again, that's the so what. So why do you want to serve 1,000 people in your neighborhood? That's the so what. Why do you want to hire 30 staff members? How is that going to change my life? I want to know what's the outcome of you hiring 30 people. What's the outcome of the taxpayers' dollars being spent? What's the outcome of that? So again, we want to make sure we're clear between outcomes and outputs. So here's a survey question, 2 questions I believe, yes, to help you distinguish between outcomes and outputs. Mrs. Johnson completed the adult basic education class by meeting attendance requirements. Raise your hand if you think that is an outcome. Mrs. Johnson completed the adult basic education class by meeting attendance requirements. Raise your hand if you think that is an outcome. Raise your hand. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that is an output. Okay? Seniors demonstrate greater independent living skills. Raise your hand if you think that is an outcome. Okay, raise your hand if you think that is an output. Okay, let's see what the survey says. Mrs. Johnson completed the ABE Adult Basic Education class by meeting attendance requirements. That indeed is an output. That is not saying how Mrs. Johnson is changed. But if you read that statement, does that tell you anything about Mrs. Johnson changing in any way? It doesn't, right? Again, it has significance, because at least we know that she completed this course of education, but we also want to know, so what? So what that she attended 30 sessions? How was she changed by that? And the change would be something to the effect of, if she increased her knowledge in some way, if she increased a score in some way from the beginning to the end, that would be an outcome. Seniors demonstrate greater independent living skills. That is an outcome, because there we're saying that the seniors are changed because now they have greater independent living skills. So does everyone clearly see the distinction there between outcome and output?
Yes.
Here's another survey question. XYZ agency provides a housing assistance program. Is that an outcome or an output? Let me hear someone shout it. Output, exactly. Mr. Jones achieves competency in basic math skills. Output or outcome? Outcome. Both of them correct. So is this not making sense to anyone? Is anyone? We're good on this?
Yes.
Outcome, output, okay. So now we're going to go into some common mistakes. I'll just jump to the slide that shows a common mistake. Senior citizens will increase their mobility and flexibility from needing assistance when walking or being seated to walking and being seated without assistance by receiving one hot meal a day. Okay, that's a boatload. But again, it's to illustrate a mistake, right? So the mistake there is that there is an absence of a clear relationship between the service and the outcome. So there you can see there's a service about them receiving a hot meal a day, and there's an outcome being stated related to their mobility and their flexibility. Now, food is very helpful to mobility, but I think it's a bit of a stretch in the context here that to say that someone getting one hot meal a day will be able to increase their mobility, or will be able to impact their ability to move around. Some other common mistakes there. Well, no, that's the one common mistake. So we'll jump to the next one here. Homeless, jobless families. You can read along with the slide there, so you can try to point out the common mistake, even though it's indicated here. Homeless, jobless families entering a family self-sufficiency program will become completely self-sufficient, permanent full-time employment without subsidized benefits within 1 year of enrollment. Again, that's a boatload. And the mistake there is that the projected outcome cannot occur within the expected time frame. Now you see how that's possible, right? Yes, we have a question.
So the ones that have a check are the mistakes or the?
Yes, that's the mistake.
Okay.
Yes, yes. The projected outcome cannot occur within the expected time frame. So if you think about self-sufficiency, if a family is homeless and jobless, in order for them to attain self-sufficiency, you would have to address housing, you would have to address employment, you might also have to address economic stability of some sort. And to fit all of that within 1 year of enrollment is a very tall task. That's something that, as an agency, we wouldn't advise an organization to articulate an outcome like that. Not saying that it can't be possible that one out of a few hundred people can achieve that, but again, if you want to focus on a mission that's addressing a large swath of your community, you want to be able to focus on something that's realistic. So again, that right there, the way that's written, that is not considered realistic. Does everyone see that? See that flaw in the way this is framed? Right. Okay. Another mistake here. Families enrolled in a self-sufficiency program will receive budget counseling. The mistake there is that this is simply just stating a service. There is not an outcome indicated in that statement. Families enrolled in a self-sufficiency program will receive budget counseling. So whenever you see something like that, the first question in your mind should be, so what? So what did they receive? That's wonderful, it's nice, but so what happened? What changed in their life as a result of them receiving that counseling? Do they understand something different about budgeting? Are they prepared to create their own budget? Do they know if there's different ways to create budgets? Those are outcomes that you can possibly build out of that kind of a service. Are there any questions on some of these slides around the common mistakes? Okay. I'm just chock full of mistakes tonight. We got one more mistake here. Let's go. 100% of homeless families will be able to purchase their own homes within 1 year of being homeless. So what is the mistake there? 100%. Who here thinks that that would be a realistic goal? 100%, right? We would love it. Certainly love it. That's very desirable. It's a desirable state that we want. But in terms of providing services, in terms of how you structure your program, just in terms of the nature of the world, that's not necessarily a realistic way to state the outcome.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Isn't the second to the last one checked as well?
Okay, let's read that. The projected outcome cannot occur within the expected time frame. That's a good question. I would say that would also be included, but we do want to highlight that one particular mistake.
Can I piggyback on that too?
Sure.
So when you pointed to the other one, if you had a different mission statement and you design your services differently and you were in it for the long haul, like over the next 5 years or 10 years, we're going to do such and such and such, then maybe that work would reflect, right? Now here, even if you spend 2 years on this or 3 years on this, right, the city of New York, I mean, for all the credit, we're working obviously on the issue of homelessness, but do we think even in 2 years that 100% of homeless people are going to become housed? So it's not necessarily it's about the time frame, it's just the expectation is just unrealistic. You know, so we have to recognize there could be both, there could be overlap, but there are certain distinctions, and I'm glad to piggyback that and go sit down again, is we have tried to help the CBOs when they do proposals around this stuff, where we start imposing outcome rates. Please don't propose to DYC that 95% of the people are going to have the outcome, because then when you win the award, we have to hold you accountable to 95% of the people achieving the outcome, and you cannot do it. So then when you have 45% of the people do real hard work, we have to give you a bad rating. Much better that we start suggesting outcome ranges. This work is hard. Only 40 to 60% of the people can possibly do what we're asking you to do. And then if you come in at 55, because we knew it was hard. So I'm going to sit down, but I want to say, like, when you do little a advocacy, I don't mean political advocacy, but when you advocate for low-income communities and you advocate for the community-based organizations that do this work, we're also asking you to absorb this point and recognize it's hard. It's never going to be 100%. And when Ruben was talking about in the private sector, when there's business and you have a profit margin, and so every year the board of directors has said, well, we want you to increase profitability by another 5%, and we want you to reduce expenses by another 5%. How much squeezing can you do to CBOs? Well, we want another 5% outcomes every year for the next 10 or 20 years. It is infeasible. So we have to try to help support them where they really are, which has to do with how hard the circumstances of the clients really are as well. I just want to make that point.
Can I just ask? So how do you determine the margin then? So we're reading grants and we're looking at it, say they're going to do 85% or 90%. For someone who, you know, is in a community that's not used to reading grants, how do they determine whether it is overstated?
That's great. So two things. One, as I sit here and listen, it reaffirms how important it is that we give this information to you because it arms you as a reader. And two, like I said, increasingly with the CSBG contract, we are inserting these outcome rates or ratios because it helps you have fair ground. Are the proposers demonstrating how well they're going to do what they said they're going to do, the mission that they put in the stuff that we've covered, right? And so that's what I'll say to that too. You're not supposed to bring things outside information into your reading of an RFP. But the first thing, and I know you've said this, those of you who've read, you've seen this, those of you who've read before, you got to read the RFP first. And we've tried to arm everybody by what we specifically stated in the RFP. And then the question is, is the proposer being responsive? And is what they're saying really demonstrating that they can really do this contract? If you find people who are non-responsive because they start overshooting outcome ranges after we've given them outcome ranges, you can actually take points off of that rather than credit them. Oh, look how great they're trying to... It's not all that great. If they're not going to be able to do 100%.
Does that answer your question? Thank you, Mike. So then normally this activity would occur, right, but in the interest of time, you want to review the need and determine the outcome. That's kind of like what Mike was just speaking about. The need that you have identified and the outcome that you want to address and produce have to be commensurate in some way, right? So at the same time, while we definitely don't want to see the overshooting in terms of 100%, because we know that's not realistic, we also want to be realistic on the bottom side of it as well. So you can't come in saying we're going to, 5%, right? Because you're going to do 5% in a few weeks probably based on your service or something like that. So on both sides, we're the agency that will go to you and say, you're not being realistic, you're kind of short selling yourself, there's a lot that you're, can be doing, and based on, the service that you're providing, you should be at this type of rate. Another activity that we would engage in groups would be reviewing the outcome and then from there determining the service and activities. So once you've identified the need, once you've determined the outcome, then you can start building the services and activities that you want to provide to address the need and achieve the outcome. This next section is a couple of quick slides on developing results-oriented plans and implementing the plan. Why plan? You can just roll out of bed and just do it. Now, we want to plan because the focus of planning activities should be on achieving results, right? So a plan has a purpose. The purpose in this case is to get to the results, right? Just like most plans, right? The plan has some end goal, some end game. During the planning stage of the Roma cycle, organizations must consider the results or lack of results that have been achieved, pardon the typo there, in previous years. Has the organization been successful? So it's important. You're right, we're not doing this in a vacuum. There's a history. Your communities have a history. The need has a history. How has this issue been addressed in the past? What has this organization done in the past? Have they been successful? If they've been successful, how are they going to try to improve on that? Or how are they going to switch lanes on that to address a different need? Assess what must be strengthened or abandoned. That's just what I was alluding to right now. So again, you want to look in history, right, and see something that we did in the past. If it was successful, how can we improve on it? So to just say we're going to keep addressing the same issue for 30 years at the same rate to the same number of people, it can be okay, but it's an issue still because you're not trying to expand, or you're not even going back out there into the streets and saying like, well, this issue that we've been addressing for 30 years, is this still even relevant? Some of these people we served 30 years ago when we were serving teens, now they're adults and they have teenagers. What do their teenagers have that are issues? Are they the same issue? They're probably not. You think about like if you're an organization that's addressing cyberbullying, and 30 years from now, that's probably going to look totally different than it does today, right? Or if you're an agency that's addressing teenage pregnancy or something like that, 30 years ago, that was probably way different than it is today, how you address it. So again, you want to always constantly be looking and assessing so you can determine how to match your plan with your current outcome. Create a plan that identifies the results the organization will work toward. Agency plans are well written and lead to sound agency management and accountability. The agency's plan guides the implementation of the strategies to achieve results. So the plan is the core. Because again, the plan is really what's driving all of the work. The plan is the foundation in a lot of ways. This is the bridge between the results-oriented management and results-oriented accountability. Right? You have to show, the organizations have to show a plan that shows us that you're thinking ahead, that you've done all this work that we presented today, and that you're ready to move forward. Again, you're not just rolling over and chasing money, as Cortez was talking about before. You just didn't hear about an RFP and say, oh yeah, I can do that. Or we can do that. We haven't done it before, but we can do it because it's $1 million and we're going to, that's good money for us to pay our staff. So yeah, we can do that now. Where's your plan? Well, okay, we'll draft one up in 2 days. What's your history of addressing this issue? Well, we don't really have a history, but we want the money. That's not going to work, right? Plan. Now, that's not to say that an organization can't say, you know, this is an issue that we now want to address that we haven't addressed, right? Because again, they're doing their homework and they've looked at the history and they understand how their services can meet the issue and address the issue. That's something that we want to see, right? Because again, that indicates that they've planned.
I have a question there
Yes.
before you move. About the accountability. I'm from NAT 7, and we just give several grants to several agencies that put up, big chunk of money. I want to know as a NAT member what they are doing. They are doing their job, they are not doing their job. Where is the accountability that I just can go see? They are doing their job, why to give them $700,000, they are doing nothing. I mean, and then even that we read and through all that process, I want to know now, I mean, I don't know if it's part of this one, but just my question is just, where do I get that information to find out if the people that we fund in our organization are doing the job that they told us that they will be doing?
Right. So,
I mean, you can put it yes, no, 94%, please.
the short answer is, because the team is trying to manage time for this presentation, we're not going to get into the details of that issue. But in my earlier remarks, I was saying that on a routine basis, when my team and I would come before the program committee, the CAB gets regular reports on how all the programs are performing. So I think in another forum we can talk more about how the CAB can be sharing information with the NABs. But I know Joe and his team always setting up meets and greets and opportunities for you to meet the agencies that have been funded. So I think at another time we can get more into it.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'll turn it over now to, is it Patrice Cortez? Thank you.
In the interest of time, I'm going to try to wrap this up in 3 minutes. How about that? Right? Somebody time? All right. All right, good. Now, let me just, my part anyway. Somebody asked a question earlier about how do you know if you're projecting the right outcome numbers for a particular need or situation. One is evaluating that from a proposal point of view by reading somebody say, all of our members, our goal is that all participating members receive X, Y, and Z services. Now that's one angle. Another angle could be when you're an organization and you have a mission and you're trying to serve people, for you to come up with a number that you think is realistic and favorable, and so I'm going to look at it from that angle, and part of the core concept is evaluating your performance. Evaluating performance. If we say we're going to do something, did we actually do it, and did it make sense? Now, for doing that, how many people have ever played baseball and know a little bit about baseball? Raise your hand. Have you ever heard the expression of bat 1,000? Who ever heard the expression of bat 1,000? Come on, you baseball people. What does it mean to bat 1,000? Well, it's right here. So say it. Good. Read it. She says right up there. If someone bats 1,000, it means that he got a hit, or she, depends on the league, every single time he or she was up at bat. That means for every time I got up to bat, I hit it 1,000 times. It means 100% perfect. Now, getting a hit equals hitting the ball and getting to base. Right? Batting 1,000. Woo! Boy, he batted 1,000. Now, one of the good things that we can learn about baseball is baseball has been collecting statistics since the 1876. And guess what they discovered? They discovered a very interesting point. Let me see if you can discover it as well. How many people at baseball actually bat 1,000?
0.
Nobody. Nobody.
Never.
Babe Ruth, supposedly one of the best baseball players that ever existed in the National League. So they say that his best record was about 300. Out of 1,000 times at bat, he hit 300. Does that sound like that's a great score if you're looking at 1,000 being 100, and out of 1,000 times he got at bat, he hit only 300? But guess what? He's supposedly the what? The greatest. So you know what baseball teaches us? Study statistics when you get your data. How do you know if serving 100 people is better than serving 50 people? if you have a very hard to reach population, say the homeless, and finding housing or secure and supportive housing, and you have 100 or 1,000 participants, maybe placing 300 in some kind of stable housing is excellent. And maybe 1,000 is unrealistic. Maybe 500 is unrealistic. Maybe 400 is unrealistic. But the superstar in that agency, or a superstar agency, out of 1,000 participants is going to get 300. That's a superstar. So the point here, to bring it to a close from my angle, is looking at the use of data collection and analyzing the data for us to observe our own records. How do I know if an agency is doing great or not unless we take records? Now let me say something. Baseball has been doing it for over 100 years. Lots of us in our agencies, we don't. So we really don't have a way of measuring what success is. We don't even know what success is. Baseball has done it. They know that success, superstar, is 300 based on the data. But we need to analyze. Organizations need to analyze their data and see what's a realistic number, what's a superstar number, and what's a really, really poor number. But the only way to do that is to measure and count and look what other people are doing and find out what is really real. That's performance evaluation. And I'm done.
Okay, people, again, in the interest of time, is a logic model. Roma has a logic model here, and if you use this, it's really fun, and it helps you really look at the work that you need to do and how to get it done. This actually is good in the planning phase, assessment phase, and evaluation phase. This is how you can say, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it, this is who is going to benefit, this is, well, what the outcome is going to be, which is the benefit, how many people are going to get this service and how it's going to be done, the performance, and what the actual result will be, and the tool I'm going to use to get the work done, the source of my information, which is data, and how often I'm going to collect this information. All right, so again, I'm going to start from the beginning. Your first phase is the problem statement, identifying your problem, your needs assessment, correct? Second phase, intervention, service or activity. Identify the number of clients to be served or the number of units, if we're talking about housing, to be offered. Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. To be offered, and identify the time frame for the project. How long we're going to take to get this done, right? What the outcome is going to be. What is going to be achieved? What's going to be the result of my work or my service? Outcome indicator projected, number of people that I'm going to serve. To Cortez's point, how many people are going to achieve this? Out of 150, 50 are going to achieve the outcome, right? And your actual results of the number of clients achieving the outcome and the number actually served. Who achieved the outcome, and also the time frame is included in here too. Measurement tool. What am I going to use as my proof that this was done? What is my measurement tool? What will you use to document the outcome and the evidence that you will collect? So in the work that some of our CBOs do, in my portfolio, in educational support, proof that a student has increased their grade is the report card. That's the proof for us. They submit a report card that shows that a young person increased their grade by 3 points or higher, right? The data source, include both the data collection procedure and who is responsible for the data. What is the data? The report card that I got from the Department of Education from the school, and who is responsible to collect the data? The school guidance counselor who works in our program, the case manager who works in our program, the counselor advocate who works in our program. That's the person that is going to be collecting this data. Accountability, right? And then how often do you collect and report on this data? In our work, we collect and report on the data 4 times a year. Right, Marvin? 4 times a year we collect and report on this data to our CSBG, the federal and state government. That's really, really quick because of time, but it's in your PowerPoint if you want to look at it further. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's the next?
Scale.
Before you do scales,
Scale.
jeez, I can't get up. The gentleman in the back, when you talked about activities, the slides that Ruben was doing, you see how they built the logic model and all the things that have happened this morning. One thing that I love when we get into it is, first you identify the need of the problem, right? But if you saw the order of the work, then you went to the outcome, and then the service was last. And I'd say people rush to do the service. You have to know what the need is,
Right.
and what the outcome you want to produce is, and you back the strategy and service into it so you know it can deliver on the need. I think that's an important point.
Thank you.
Now, only for the interest of time, the last and final major concept, I'm going to use another analogy to try to get you out of here. One of the things that we encourage organizations and agencies to do is use scales. It helps them to be able to identify quickly where a person is. So, how many of you ever drive a car? When the gas tank is full, you feel like you're doing really well. Maybe I'll just put that back there. You saw it. When the car is 3/4 full, you feel like you're good. You feel emotionally safe and secure. How about when it gets to the halfway mark on your car? What do you feel at that point? Anybody starting to get a little anxious, a little nervous? Start thinking about needing to go to that gas station? What about when it drops down to a quarter of the way? Worry, anxiety. And what about when you see it on E? What happens to you then? Panic, right? Well, one of the things that we say, and you know when it's on E, you still probably have about 4 or 5 gallons left, right? When we begin to look at our agencies, we thought that you can use the idea of thriving, safe, stable, vulnerable, or in crisis. And if you could clearly identify, what does thriving mean? Full tank. What does it mean when a client is safe? Maybe it's a quarter tank, and etc. Having clear markers for a housing program or a youth program helps you to identify quickly where a participant might finally be and what planning needs to go to get them to what is considered thriving in that state. You have it in your PowerPoint, and you can also continue to read it. Just want to pull it all together so that at least we can close you guys out on time. These are the next steps. You have gotten the 6 core principles, abridged as it was, of the Roma planning cycle. The walk away for next steps, recognize that Roma is a process. It's not a tree, it's a process. It's something that you evolve into. It affects all aspects of management and organization. Recognize the focus is on outcomes and performance in addition to activities and output. It's not just services, it's how those services impacting the life of somebody. Can we measure impact, not just trinkets that we give out? And then identify and collect appropriate and relevant needs assessment data and outcome data, knowing where you are. Train staff and board in Roma practices. We hope that you enjoyed a portion of the training that we provided for you today. And if you can follow up with your PowerPoint, and if need be, you can attend one of the larger full-out, blown-out things. So thank you for your time and your attention.
Can I say one last thing?
And you guys have to formally close out. I think the chairman has to come up.
Right. So before the chair closes the meeting, I want to again thank the team. Please can we thank two things. One, you see the passion and the skill. So this is the team that works directly with the CBOs out in the community. So when they spend the half day or the full day training doing this in more depth, they do a half-day training on case management standards because we really want the notes to be strong so that the oversight team can see what's going on. But what's one of the other trainings you guys have been piloting? The
Capricorn, case management, Roma.
Exactly.
And the new soon-to-be DYCD Connect.
Exactly. So we're changing and adapting our whole internal database system, and so they go out and communicate this. And I love the integration. I love the time that we got to spend with you. I really appreciate your questions. And the thing that I'm really struck by, and I knew this going in, but given the range of questions, I think this information further empowers and helps you in the reading we will do the next time we do RFPs, and 3 years from now, when there's a whole other needs assessment or whatever. Because again, you're allies, and the more you understand what we are all trying to achieve and how we are all trying to do it as a community action agency, it better protects us and helps us defend the importance of the work and continue to do it. So I thank you for your time and for coming, and also for staying late on a weeknight. I know it takes something to be here. So again, on behalf of the team, Deputy Commissioner Gutierrez, we thank you.
Yep, and with that being said, from CAB members only, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn.
Linda, I mean,
Let me walk through, maybe one.
And can I get a second?
Gideon.
Second for Gideon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait.
Wait a minute, you gotta do the motion, right?
Oh, wait,
Right.
you have something else?
No, don't you have to?
Wait. Before you actually take the vote, take the vote and then talk.
Oh, okay. That's
Just the CAB.
new to this, guys. So I gotta take a vote
Yeah.
From the CAB now.
from the CAB. From CAB members only.
It was moved and seconded, and now you need
Yeah, you
to take a
can,
vote.
just asking you to vote yes or no. All in favor?
All in favor? All right.
Okay, so during the meeting, 8:03. Okay? Okay. Before you guys leave, real quick, so did you enjoy the training?
Yes.
Do you feel like you had an outcome? You learned more about Rome now, right? You're all a product of an outcome. Yeah, great. Okay, so we're going to do lots of these kinds of trainings over the next couple of, next year or so. And when you walked in, there was a flyer for the next set, which is the building bridges, which is kind of like a fundraising 101. So it's not just for people in the room, it's for anybody you know. So take some flyers, anybody that has like an organization that might want funding in the future, whatever. It's a really great training about how do you go about getting funding, how do you write proposals, all that kind of stuff. So take that, it's all around the city. And then, and we have more of these things as we go along. And then finally, one last thing. Did everybody who's in this room, did you all sign in?
Yes.
And you all have vouchers? Those of you eligible? Did you fill out your vouchers? You're free to go. Thank
Wait. Everyone who signed in, did you give your email address?
We have.
All right, so everyone who is here, we want to send an email, so I know that you said to Joe that you enjoyed it, but also it's part of our Roma performance, we measure performance. So if we can have your agreement, we'll send something in the next week, just send an email back about how well the team did. So there's always a delta, an area of improvement, so they're all asking me for feedback right now.
We need the feedback so we can do the assessment and do the loop to see if we need to
Yes,
tweak
so
stuff
we need
too.
to make good on what we said.
Please
Okay,
answer the
so
email.
thank you.
We do Roma amongst ourselves.